Good morning, everybody. I'm Caroline Wolf. Thank you for coming to our Halloween spooky edition of Libraries Connecting Texas. Thanks for bearing with us while we rescheduled today's webinar and kind of shook it up a little bit. I just wanted to welcome everyone. I'm Caroline Wolf. We have Jenny Harwood, Kyle Lewis, Patty Hollingsworth, Brandy Krubaugh, Jennifer Williams, and Tegan Beck. And we're going to go ahead and get started with our October spooky morning Libraries Connecting Texas webinar. I'm going to go over some of the really cool stats from the Libraries Connecting Texas project over the past few years. I don't know if you realized just how great this project's been for Texas libraries, but we'll go over that a little bit. Kyle's going to go over contracts and legally binding agreements. Brandy's going to go over the administrative window, which is when we get to update our profiles to be ready for 2022. And then Patty's going to talk about next steps. So this is a little bit different than what I usually report. Usually I just report about what's going on for 2021, but I just wanted to let everybody know that $3.3 million has been dispersed to Libraries Connecting Texas participants since 2018. That's a lot of money for Texas libraries. Congratulations to all of you. $5.5 million has been funded for LCT libraries. And that's for some libraries that weren't participating in the E-rate program before. So this is new money coming into Texas libraries, and it's awesome. 443 applications have been funded since 2018, and $3.3 million has been dispersed. That means libraries have actually gotten the money. The $5.5 million has been awarded, but the $3.3 million has been paid out to libraries, and that's for both Category 1 and Category 2 applications. So for 2021, just want to let everybody know there are still some libraries that need to file 486s, and that means today, because today, if you were funded on or before July 1st, then that means that today is the deadline to file the 486. 486 lets USAC know that your services have started and they can start paying invoices. So if you're using the SPI process, service providers cannot invoice for your discounts until you file the 486. It's really important to make sure that you take care of that, because you can't get that money without getting the 486 filed. Likewise, for 2020, today, for the applications for internet access that were filed in 2020 and for some in 2019, but I don't think any of the LCT libraries have any outstanding 2019 funding that still hasn't been accessed. But 2020, today is the last day to file invoices for the 2020 discounts. So if you haven't gotten your money, that means you haven't filed the bear form, or you haven't received the discounts applied to your bill for the service provider, today's the last day that you can file. Now, there is an opportunity to apply for an extension of the deadline, but you have to submit that extension request today. We are available to help you with that, but do take advantage of that, because this is it for 2020 for your internet access. If you don't file a bear today or a SPI and you don't request the extension and you miss the deadline, it's almost impossible to get it extended after the deadline has passed. So let's move on to the next slide. There was something else I wanted to share with everyone. During the LCT history, that's the first year that we started filing applications with LCT libraries was 2018. And so we filed 2018 through 2021. The average bandwidth has gone up from 245 megabits per second to 1,050. That means that the increase is, the average bandwidth for LCT libraries is a gigabit. That's 1,000 megabytes. So congratulations to all of you, because it means that you were brave enough to increase your discounts. I mean, you increase your speeds and maybe put out a little bit more money initially and get E-rate discounts, file those applications, get better bandwidth, but it's also meant that you're paying less for the bandwidth. That means the cost per megabit has decreased. When this program started, the average cost was $5.84 a megabit, and it's now $3.75. This means what libraries have done is that they've gone out to bid, they've asked for higher speeds, they've compared costs and gotten their bandwidth higher and paid less for it. So congratulations to all of you. I think you're able to provide better services to your patrons at lower cost to the library. So kudos. Someone's raising their hand. Kendra Harrell has a question. I'm gonna allow you to talk. So just unmute and you can ask whatever question.
Hi. Sorry, that was an accidental click.
Okay, well, at least you demonstrated that people can raise their hands. Okay, so I'm gonna lower your hand. All right, so let's move on. I think Kyle is gonna talk about contracts and legally binding agreements.
Certainly. Thank you, Caroline. And not just contracts and legally binding agreements, but spooky contracts and legally binding agreements. As the Form 470 is filed, that is going to start a 28-day bidding period. And at the conclusion of that bidding period, and after bids have been evaluated, you can make a decision on the winning bid, and you can sign a contract with the selected service provider. As soon as that is selected, you should request a contract as soon as you know you need one. And they may take time to obtain. Additionally, I know some service providers will provide quotes based on a certain time of the year, and they may change their pricing over the course of time and provide a different quote if you wait too long. But after that, do consider whether the contract would need to be approved by the City Council or by the Library Board. This is all in keeping with the state and local procurement requirements that you need to go through. And so consider the timeline of what the entire 470 and bidding process and contract would be, contract evaluation would be if you have to, take it before the City Council or Board on a certain day of the month, and only on certain months. Try to file the Form 470 and complete the bidding period prior to that date so that those can be evaluated. Also consider who has the authority to sign the contract. And that may be either with the city or with the library. Moving on to, I believe, what do we have next? Oh yes, so keep in mind that in the E-rate modernization order, the FCC eased the requirements for signing contracts. If you cannot obtain a signature on the contract prior to certifying the Form 471, there are other actions that can be taken. Essentially, you can provide a contract award letter, and that falls within the responding to a bid with all the material terms and conditions provided, essentially the pricing in addition to the scope of the service being provided. And in the past, you may have seen in some of our materials contract award templates or award letters that can be filled and put on library letterhead and receive approval as something that can function as a agreement. However, a signed contract is the best evidence of a legally binding agreement. So if there is a contract available, best to go through that. So once you have created a contract or legally binding agreement, there is a function in Epic where you can create a contract record. Now, those of you who have filed a Form 471 in the past, you have likely already gone through this process or referenced a contract already entered into the EPC portal. And in order to access this section in the EPC portal, from your landing page, you will go to your library's name and then click on the contracts link towards the top of that page. And then after clicking on contracts, you can click on Manage Contracts, the button at the top right of the page, and then click Add a New Contract for the purposes of creating a new contract. Within Manage Contracts, you'll also be able to see old contracts that have been created as well. There will be a series of questions and information you need to enter into the contract record fields. If you have any questions about any of these items, please reach out to lct@eratecentral.com. But once we have that contract record created, once we start that creation, you can nickname it something that is easy to identify for your purposes. So you can, for example, 22 for the funding year, 2022. You can put the library name and either the service name or maybe the service provider name. And then that way you know exactly what it pertains to. If you have a contract number associated with the contract, that is something that will go on the contract record. You are able to upload a copy of the contract. However, this is not required, and in some cases, less is more. So you don't necessarily need to upload that. You will need to have your Form 470 ready, and because you are going to be searching for that Form 470 within the contract record creation. They'll want to associate that Form 470 and that bidding process with this contract record. Additionally, keep track of how many bids you receive during the bidding period, because that is information that will need to go on the contract record as well. The service provider identification number, and that is something that is going to be found potentially on the bid itself or can be requested from the service provider. That is something that you will also include on the contract record. You can search by the service provider name. However, sometimes certain service providers have multiple spins depending on location in the country and a few other factors. So spin is typically the, having the correct spin is typically the most important thing here. You will also enter the contract dates, so the start and end dates. Often those start dates are going to align with the start of the funding year on July 1st of such and such funding year. and then continue through all the pages and submit. And I think that brings us to Brandy, who will be discussing, Brandy, who will be discussing entity profile updates and administrative window updates.
Thanks, Kyle. This is likely the easiest process for you coming into the time that we file Form 470s and 471s. USAC has an entity profile update time period available just so you can make sure you have everything correct for the Form 471. It's a good time to review all aspects of the library's profile information to ensure that everything is accurate. There are a few items specifically that you'll want to look at that you can make changes to. And Jenny, if you could go to the next slide, please, ma'am. And that's going to be adding any new library branches. And that can be done by creating a customer service case in Epic or calling CSB to have that new branch created. And that's also something that we can, help walk you through if you have questions about it. Another thing that can be updated is the square footage for your main library or library branches. If you've had any construction that increased the square footage, that's something that you'll want to update. It directly impacts your Category 2 budget. So that's something to take a look at as well. Again, any contact information, just double checking everything that's a part of the library's profile in Epic is important to do at this time. The window to do that will close right before the 471 filing window opens, which will be sometime in January. And now Patty is going to talk to you about next steps.
Great, thank you, Brandy. Hi, everyone. I'll be talking about the next steps and also some current action items. This time of year is the time of year to file the Form 470. This form is the form that opens the competitive bidding for your E-rate services. For those libraries already in multi-year contracts, this is something that you can skip and go straight to the 471 in the spring. But for everyone else, you will want to do the following steps. Some items you'll want to verify as you prepare for the Form 470 is to verify the street address of the location needing your service, and that it matches what's registered in the EPC portal, which Brandy just went over with you. Then you'll also want to make sure to determine your current internet bandwidth and also if an increase is needed in that bandwidth. And once you have those things, you'll then want to prepare a service specifications document and add that to your Form 470. Now, this document includes the address and most importantly, the bandwidth that you determine that you'll need for this upcoming E-rate year. And you'll also include on that sheet a timeline. And on that timeline, you'll include the date that your 470 is posted and also a recommended 10-day question and answer period. And finally, the date that your competitive bidding or 470 closes. So it's important to remember that your competitive bidding period remains open for a minimum of 28 days. So once you determine your time period, we recommend, and a best practice is to add those dates into your personal calendar so that you can track those upcoming dates. And so once all of that information is gathered, you have your completed service specification document, then you would add that to your Form 470 in the Epic portal, and then you'll be ready to certify. So we do have some upcoming dates in the next couple of weeks where we can walk through that Form 470 filing process. The first dates will be this Thursday, November 4th at 10 a.m. And then the following week, Wednesday, November 10th at 2 p.m. Next slide, some additional items for you to consider this time of year. If you requested a bandwidth increase for this year that started this past July 1st, or if you changed your service provider, just remember to check your monthly bill to confirm that those changes occurred. If you did change service providers, you'll want to make sure that the old service has been turned off after your new service begins. Another thing to consider, and Caroline mentioned previously, is today is the last day to file bears or to request filing extensions for the E-rate year that ended this past June 30th. Please reach out to us if you don't know if you need to file a bear or if you're uncertain on how to file the bear, and we'd be glad to assist. One other thing I did want to mention is that for the Form 486 for this funding year, the due date to file is for some applications is tomorrow. So if we've reached out to you to let you know of that filing deadline, please let us know if you have any questions on that as well. And finally, on this section, our goal on the upcoming 470s is to have those completed and filed by Thanksgiving, which is November 25th this year. So if please feel free to reach out here at us at Libraries Connecting Texas via email or phone, and we would be glad to assist if anyone has any questions.
I will also add that what Patty mentioned, the come file with us, we will record those. We'll have 2 of those. For those of you that have participated with us last year, you're probably familiar with how we do it. So we'll have those live webinars. Hopefully you can join us. And then if you can't, we will record them and put them on our YouTube channel so you can look at them at your convenience. So.
And we can send the slides from this webinar out when we send the link to the YouTube video. Kyle, when you send the newsletter, maybe we can send out the slides. Someone was asking for the slides.
Certainly.
We'll also be posting the recording, as Jenny said, on our YouTube channel. So please check that out if you want to review it. We're hoping that if you need to file a 470, that you will attend one of the 470 Come File With Us webinars. We'll be reaching out to you if you're one of the people who needs to file a 470, and we'll be sending you the link to attend. Please determine whatever bandwidth you're going to need for next year. If you have a current contract and you do feel like you need to increase your bandwidth, you may, even though you aren't required to file a 470, next year, if you have a contract, if you want to increase your bandwidth, it's possible that you should file a 470, depending on the bandwidth you need. So do reach out to us if you have a question about increasing bandwidth. Again, our Libraries Connecting Texas email is lct@eratecentral.com, and you can reach us at 516-801-7820. That's our LCT hotline. You also have all of our contact information if you need us. Thanks so much for attending, and we hope that you have a great rest of the week and Halloween. Thank you.